Hi, welcome to Art Online. My guest today is Jon Reid. Hi, Jon. How are you doing?
No bad, no bad. How you doing?
Not so bad, not so bad. Jon is a blogger and an artist, and we know each other from the Nuart Festival, really, from Aberdeen. And, it hasn't happened this year because of obvious reasons, the coronavirus and all that sort of stuff. But there's a big collection of artists that was due to descend on the city. And you've been involved in that for a while, haven't you, Jon? How did you get involved in the whole Nuart Aberdeen thing in the first place?
So it was actually my girlfriend Mary that kind of clued me into it. I'd been reading about Nuart for years, in Juxtapose and some of the kind of magazines and that. And I'd actually been over for the festival in Stavanger in 2014, but because I didn't know who anyone was, I didn't make any of the kind of connections back then. And then I'd actually started photographing walls in Aberdeen with the idea of getting in touch with the team to say, how could we make something like Nuart happen, or how could we do a smaller scale version, And then my girlfriend was like, oh, they're already coming. It's already been sorted. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah. So Aberdeen Inspired, Ross has been working with them for the last couple of years, and they've been sort of working things out about how they could make it happen. So yeah, they're coming next year kind of thing. And then from there, we met up with Martin and the Nuart team at the time for dinner, and just kind of had a chat, and obviously just sort of speaking about street art and speaking about kind of the various artists that I knew and things. There was all these little connections sort of came out. And I remember saying to Martin about, seeing Banksy prints, for example, on pictures on walls for a couple of £100, Invader prints for £300. And I was always sort of I don't like the prints that much, and I don't really have £300 to spare right now, which obviously I fucking kick myself about now, But at the same time, it was I didn't buy it because I didn't dig that stuff as much as I like the street stuff. Yeah. And Martin just kind of turned around and went oh, I bought them all, when they were £40, because I was sort of ahead of the curve. So as soon as that conversation happened, he kind of got me on board to help out with scouting locations, just a bit of local knowledge, really, somebody in the city that kind of knows what Nuart's about and what it is they're trying to do, and then trying to figure out locations that could work for seeing the artists come and produce their work,
And that was, and the first one was sort of 2017, wasn't it? So you were walking around before that. Yeah. And sort of suggesting, I think, actually, this spot might. Were you connecting with the wall owners as well? Did you do any of that, or?
No, Ross and the team at Aberdeen Inspired kind of looked after a lot of that side of it. They've got the connections through the council and that, so they're able to kind of handle the sort of bureaucratic side and the negotiating side.
There's a lot of
negotiations and a lot of kind of groundwork. Even now, kind of 4 years on, I think people are starting to get it and people are understanding it a lot more, but businesses and wall owners are still sort of what, graffiti festival, no thanks.
It's funny because Aberdeen has always been an interesting city, because now you look at it and you think there's so much high quality curated artwork in that city, but there's also really good underground local scene. Has that always been the case then? Has Aberdeen always had that scene associated with it that's gone before and throughout the Nuart time?
I would say graffiti wise, there's always been graffiti writers. There's always been, guys doing that stuff in the city. Although there was a big clampdown back in the sort of late noughties, and I think a lot of people got busted, and that kind of squashed a lot of the activity that was going on at the time. Really, the city's felt quite sterile for a long time. And then just before Nuart came back in 2016, my partner Mary was doing the Painted Doors project. So it was looking at not so much street art, but art on the streets, So it was taking studio artists and designers and a few guys that were doing sort of stencils and stuff, and kind of giving them a platform and giving them ways to sort of connect with the local community a bit more. But really, I was doing paste ups, stencils, sort of traditional sort of things that you'd consider street art, I guess. Very much in that vein. I was never a tagger. I was never out bombing stuff or bombing trains and doing that kind of stuff. Luckily I kind of had quite a nice upbringing and stuff, and I didn't have the sort of usual anger that you need to be go out and doing some of that stuff. you know, it was always just felt a bit disingenuous about to go and tag something for the sake of it, you know, and then scuttle off back to my council house in Maastricht, my loving family. Doesn't really work, you know. But yeah, there's been a bit of a scene emerged, and I think part of it was pre-Nuart, but quite a lot of it is post-Nuart, you know. Like there's guys I've met like Charlie and Vlad and a few of the other volunteers who, and Andy as well, who does the Abs Java stuff, who were starting to do stuff or maybe had previously done stuff. And then people like Vlad who'd never done any of it. And then now he's like probably the most sort of prevalent guy in the city for, you know, doing stencil work and doing sort of political work. So, you know, it's really given a lot of us a boost, but it's actually brought a lot of us together as well, you know, so where we kind of can support each other and sort of like big each other up a bit, you know.
Sounds like Nuart sort of acted as the glue, if you like, to generate that scene.
Yeah, I think between Painted Doors and Nuart, it's really kind of thrown a lot of us together that maybe traditionally wouldn't have crossed paths, you know. And it's given us opportunities to kind of see how Nuart do things, see how what it's like to create big artworks, and then it's kind of pushing people to do their own big artworks, you know. So in that sense, you know, it's been really quite amazing to see the transformation, you know.
And there's been some recent work go up as well, because I wanted to specifically ask you about some of the most recent work, because obviously Aberdeen this year has not had the Nuart Festival because of coronavirus, but there have been a series of lockdown editions that have gone up, which are a series of paste up editions from some of the artists who would have taken part in Nuart had it been going on. I mean, how did you get involved in this? What's happened here? Because I've seen the pictures, they're fantastic.
So, like Martin and the team kind of reached out. You know, we were sort of in pre-festival mode and kind of getting things sorted on that side of it. And then obviously the sort of COVID-19 stuff kicked in, and you know the country has gone into lockdown. So we kind of realised we can't really, you know, it's not going to go ahead. Certainly not any time in the near future, you know, if at all this year, really. But Martin kind of came up with a concept of maybe getting artwork from the artists that we could get printed. And then obviously needed some locals to kind of help get them up out into the city. So I kind of offered to help with that side of it, you know, having kind of done a load of pasting and worked with a lot of the artists for Nuart, like Dr. D and like Ox over in Stavanger as well. You know, we'd done big paste ups with those guys, and they'd kind of shown me how to do it, you know. I remember Adrian Flying Leaps actually in Stavanger. We actually had a pool of water for No Hope's indoor show, so we used that to soak the paste up before putting it on the wall, you know. And he was like, "Oh, it's really important that you get it wet. You know, you've got to make sure the blue back paper is soaked right through, otherwise it kind of doesn't quite work properly and distorts and falls off." So you know, I had all these skills, thankfully, that the team had kind of empowered me with for doing the big stuff, and then it was just a case of going out and finding like interesting locations for it, you know. So I just set off on my bike and kind of scouted around and looked, you know, for places that the art could actually get out of the city centre a bit more, you know, places that people might have to kind of discover or rediscover, you know, like forgotten places, but also places where the artwork could connect to like local groups. Like we did one over in Torres, and then we've got the Victoria Art Road group who are doing their own sort of street art in that area, you know. So it's really nice to have an artwork that connects to them, you know, and have the artworks be in the community as opposed to just here's the city centre, you know, go buy your cup of coffee or whatever. It's like, you know, let's have it out there, you know.
Sounds like you had a pretty good paste up education there from some of the best in the business, really.
Yeah,
not many people get that exposure. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I mean, I'd say with Nuart, it's one of the things that they've done massively for me is kind of, you know, not just getting me to help out, but actually investing back into me, you know, and kind of giving me something back. You know, which has been sort of really cool because not everyone does that, you know. Sometimes it's just like, cool, give us your time and then bog off. Whereas, you know, Martin's really invested in me as an artist and as a person and as part of the team. So, you know, I'm always like super thankful of that. Like,
oh, it's incredible. There's a very family atmosphere when it comes to Nuart, isn't there? Yeah. You mentioned something just about taking the art out of the city centre. And one of the things, whenever I see, you know, things like Nuart or any festival go to town, the thing that really works is that when people are able to explore different areas of their town that they might not necessarily have ever been to before. And so so with the paste ups that you've been going around, what sort of places have you been choosing, and why have you been choosing? So I've noticed, like on the pictures, it looks like car parks and it looks like abandoned warehouses and things like that.
So, I mean, a lot of it's kind of spots that I'd looked out for myself, or places that, you know, I'd maybe wanted to do artwork, but for various reasons haven't been able to. You know, most of it's kind of laziness, actually, to be honest. You know, so, but they're such good locations, you know, and it, like I say, because they're sort of outliers for the main city centre, it does, you know, you have to think about it when you see the photographs. And like, so many people have got in touch with me about like Nuno Viegas's paste up of the hooded figure. You know, it's like an abandoned factory that's open in the west end of Aberdeen, but any other city, that factory would be covered in tags. Yeah. You know what I mean? And because he's got a graffiti background, I thought it'd be really cool to put like the big graffiti guys stuff in a place that has no graffiti, you know? So, you know, I've been kind of playing around with some of the concepts for it in that sense, and trying to find those locations that can actually relate to the work, you know? Like Sandra Cherbier's paste up, you know, we were going to put that in the city centre in a really nice, prominent location. And then I kind of spoke to Martin about it, and then decided that maybe we should put it somewhere else. Like maybe it should be in a not so nice location, you know? So I was climbing up on a ledge covered in pigeon shit, you know, while pigeons were scurrying about above my head, kind of putting up her work in a lane where people normally wouldn't bother going unless they're, you know, getting their car fixed or they're going to pick up some fish from the fish merchants, you know? So it's like, actually these sort of ugly locations with a really beautiful artwork, you know, I thought there's a conversation there about those two things, you know, and actually where people see beauty, you know, where people expect to see these kind of artworks.
It transforms your perception of the space.
Yeah, and then definitely trying to challenge that a bit as well, you know. And
I mean, that's really interesting. So you spent it sounds like you spent quite a bit of time thinking about that, the location becoming really actually an integral part of the works. It's not just a paste up, it's not just a poster that somebody's produced. In order to make that really stand out, the location has to be thought about.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something that Nuart's always done really well. You know, as far as the curation is taking artists and seeing their vision and then finding a location that's really going to work for them, you know. And I did feel quite a sort of heavy weight as far as making sure that this project was as good as it can be, you know, because it's literally just me going out with the artworks. But I did work with Willem, who's another part of the team, you know, to document the works. So he came along and helped photograph them while we were kind of pasting them up and then getting the photographs afterwards. And same as yourself, you know, Willem's somebody that I met back in 2017, and I think I've probably spoken to him more through doing these paste ups in the last couple of weeks than I have like the entire 3 years, because the festival's so busy and it's so manic.
Full,
you know, and you're just focused on getting everything done so you can get to that final weekend, and then you can sort of like down tools and relax a bit. So it's actually been really nice to kind of have him on board and to have his input, you know, because he had his own ideas, and, you know, I would suggest locations and then he would think about it and then come back and be like, oh, have you thought about this place? So it was really cool that me and him had a collaboration on it as well, you know. And it kind of became a team effort as opposed to just like I'm going out and doing Nuart stuff. You know, it's like, no, we're the team, and everyone has a say and everyone has input into it. You know, because I mean, like Vlad as well and Tazi, like two of the other volunteers, like they came out kind of separately. You know, because we had to watch how we did it with the numbers and stuff for social distancing. But Tazi came on a few of the missions and he had input into it, like icy and salt and stuff. And Vladimir's paste ups, like he helped with them, and then Vlad helped out with Bianco Shock's work and a few of the other ones. So it really became this little sort of team effort, trying to work around the sort of problems of social distancing and the lockdown, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It was a lot of fun, you know. It was kind of nice to be sort of part of a gang again, doing that stuff. But, you know, obviously wary of the situation. You know, we had like face masks on and stuff. Itself felt quite weird.
Well, I just think it's amazing that you know, we've been able to add this extra body of work into Aberdeen, and also of you know, using this medium, this paste up medium, which I think has always been quite underappreciated. Really, I love the paste ups. I love it when it weathers and they decay and something might go over them, and it has this. There's a life to them. There's a finite life to paste ups. What? Just because obviously you live in Aberdeen all year round, you know, Nuart comes in and then it goes and it comes in again, but you're there all the time and you're still doing I know you do tours and things like that. What does the city think of the street art in between the times? How do they sort of live with the art, if you like? What's the reaction to it outside of festival time?
For me, I was quite surprised. Like, you know, I remember that first year, and like, you know, because I was artist host as well, so I was meeting the artists and kind of giving them a sort of introduction to Aberdeen and kind of looking after them when they were here. And I just remember like seeing Martin What's On start his piece, and you know, it was so big and it was just so bold. You know, it was a big statement to make in Aberdeen at the time. And then I remember meeting like Falk and Yasmin from Heracute, and then seeing them start to work, you know, and people were really sort of like, oh, something going on here, you know. And since then, it's just been overwhelmingly positive, you know, like one or two critics here and there, but on a whole. And the thing I've really loved about it, Stuart, is that like I know this stuff. You know, like I knew Heracute and I knew Martin What's On, and you know, I've been following street art for like almost 20 years, really. You know, so I know these guys and I know their work. And I'm walking around with like middle-aged men on a Saturday morning. And, you know, one of the nicest experiences I had, or one guy came up to me after the first hour of a tour, you know, walking about. And he was like, I tell you, John, my wife said I was going on a walking tour, a street tour. And I was like, what the hell are we doing this for on a Saturday morning? But, you know, you're so good and you're so engaging and the works are so good that I'm absolutely loving it. And I can't wait to see what's coming up next. And I just thought, man, you know, that's like a guy, just a normal average Aberdonian who's probably not that interested in art, definitely not interested in street art. And, you know, he was able to get access to it and was able to find something really special in it, you know. And I think that comes from the festival and the artworks and all the effort that the team put in, and also breaking it down and engaging people. You know, like I'll go and do talks with school kids, I'll go and do talks with like seniors. And we really, you know, an important part of it for me is that the community in Aberdeen does have access to it if they want to. You know, you can go and see it on your own and do it in your own terms. But if you want to get the stories and you want all the little anecdotes and all that stuff that I've got to bring to the table, you know, I'll take people out any day of the week and I'll speak to them about it. You know, and after that, it's a case of like, you make your own mind up. You know, you've now got the information, you know, all about it. If you still think the artwork's rubbish, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like that's your opinion, but at least you're informed and able to make that opinion based on having a bit of knowledge instead of the blanket, you know, like, oh, it's just a load of shite, you know, whatever art, you know. So, you know, we do a lot of work around that, and, you know, the reaction we get from people is just phenomenal. Like, you know, I mean, I still find myself forgetting about stuff, and I'll stumble across a piece of it, and I'll be like, "Oh my god!"
Oh, that's
like Ernest Zakarevic. You know, there's a 5-story kid climbing up on an office block. You know,
yes,
it's like, you know, it still has that wow factor. You know,
you certainly get to know the city wandering those streets looking for that art. I bet, don't you? You really sort of get to know where's where.
Like 500 people down the tunnels, you know, which is like covered in graffiti and pigeon poo. You know, and people are kind of wading into it to go and look for, like, you know, like Julio's work, you know, for Renaissance Rembrandt masterpieces that he's recreated on a wooden board in a, you know, dingy little alley. It's like quite amazing to see that, you know. And
the tunnels is one of my favourite places in Aberdeen. I have to say, I love going down there. There's always something different, and then you've got sort of, you know, really significant works by huge international artists, and you got all this brilliant other stuff from artists that have just come into the city, or they're part of the city already, and they just put stuff up, and it's just a great little spot. Do you find do you think there's a sense of pride in the city that's generated by seeing this work, going down these streets, seeing these magnificent pieces, and thinking, oh wow, you know, I live here?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the problems we have in Aberdeen is that because we're sort of so far from the central belt, we kind of suffer from our own, you know, sort of misconceptions. You know, like people think like, oh, Aberdeen, nothing happens there. And then you speak to Aberdonians and they go, oh, Aberdeen's rubbish, nothing happens here. You know, whereas now I think people are able to say like, oh, well, you know, Smug's got a lot of work in Glasgow, for example. And people are suddenly going like, well, Aberdeen's got a Smug.
Yeah.
We've got a Smug piece, you know.
We've
got an Ernest Akarevic. So the people started to kind of tap into that. But it's not necessarily about saying like, well, we've got it now, so we're better. But it's about saying like, oh, cool. So like, you've seen Smug's work in Glasgow. Like, come up to Aberdeen and you'll see his work in Aberdeen. And then, oh, you see this person's work. Oh, that's my pal for Dundee. So go to Dundee and go and see him down there, you know. So it's about connecting as opposed to trying to one-up each other, I think. And I think, you know, people have really embraced that idea that we are now connected, you know, to other cities through the street art and through the festival. A
sort of street art network throughout Scotland, really. That's so really focusing and supporting each other's scenes.
That's what I think it should be like. You know? I mean, obviously, you know, it doesn't always play out that way, but you know, like I always think, you know, Aberdeen suffered from its own arrogance sometimes, and as a result, we've seen other cities like Dundee, you know, who have managed to really rebrand themselves and really pull themselves up. And that's a great city for design, for computer games. You know, they've got the V&A, the only V&A outside of London. You know, so Dundee's done a hell of a job. And you know, and you know, part of that comes through the council, part of that comes through having artists, having affordable spaces. You know, and for me, it's always been an idea of what are they doing right? You know, let's learn from them as opposed to, you know, sort of making them the butt of the joke, which has always been the kind of Aberdeen thing, you know. Because you know, there's always that danger that you end up getting left behind. Yeah, of course,
from
a city of shopping centres or whatever, you know. Whereas it's like, you know, now we're a city of art.
It's a city of art, which is great. Yeah, and I notice it. Honestly, I love going up to Aberdeen. I absolutely love it. I was gutted not to come up this year, but you know, it's sort of like a bit of a treat. You look forward to going to Aberdeen. You get off the little airport and sort of get there. It's only a short journey. You recognise the houses, and you go in and you start getting to know the streets and getting to know the people. It's sort of a bit of a friendly festival, sort of good little vibe with all the people that you meet as well. It's a good little, it's a nice place, isn't it? City, Granite City.
I like it. The size of it and stuff, and the sort of, you know, everything that I would need from a city I can get in Aberdeen, you know. And I always think if there's something not happening that you want to see, whether it's a festival or whether it's like art on the streets or a film festival or whatever, like if you're not doing it yourself, if you're not trying to make things happen, then you can't really complain about it. No. You know.
And they're certainly trying to make things happen. I mean, there's a lot of things happening there. On the street art scene, it's definitely, I mean, it's on the map now, isn't it? You know, internationally, I would say.
Yeah. No.
John, I'm going to leave it there. We've great chat, mate. I'm loving the pictures on the lockdown editions. Hopefully going to get something on the blog myself out on that soon. But just great to chat to you, mate.
Yeah, you too, man. You know, taking a while, but you know,
yes, exactly.
Finally, actually had a proper chat. You know,
exactly.
One of the good things to come out of this situation, I think, is being able to connect with people and stuff. You know, so
the magic of Zoom, I tell you. Yeah. All right. Cheers, buddy.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Stuart. Take it easy.